Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. A Heart of Ice and Ash. Episode 16. Chapter 151. Winter POV. She was beautiful. That was the first strange thought that entered my mind, as I gazed upwards at her. So unfair. Even while hanging like a trussed-up fish on a hook, my mother still resembled or looked like an angel. It was ironic. She'd stayed unconscious the whole time we'd traveled back, luckily no sign of the other hunters that were expected, and now she wriggled and flailed around, the silver chains burning her flesh and making it sizzle, the smell of burning in the air. "You!" she yells, her eyes flashing dark as she stares at me, with contempt in her eyes. "Let me down!" she shouts. I laugh. As if she has some kind of power over me. I would let her down when I was good and ready. For a moment I see a flash of panic in her eyes, but it's just as quickly gone. Damien and Drake stand behind me, silent observers. Damien had wanted to join in, but I had protested. He was only to join in, if I for some reason, faltered in what I was doing. He'd been none too happy, but reluctantly agreed to my terms. The trolley of torture implements stands next to me. I glance pointedly at Mother, whose mouth gapes open as I glove myself up, before selecting a pair of shears. She looks nervous now, as I saunter casually towards her, brandishing my weapon. "Winter," she whispers, glancing over at my brothers, maybe hoping one of them would step in and rescue her. "Don't do this, please." I move my head. "Are you going to give up the location?" I ask evenly, the weapon clutched tightly in my delicate hands. She swallows hard. Then shakes her head. I give a big sigh of disappointment and quietly line up the shears with her big toe. She tries to flail around and one of my hands shoot out, gripping her foot and digging my claws in as I force it to remain still. Without another word I shut the shears and cut her big toe off, relishing in the screams that follow as the toe falls to the floor, blood spurting out from the wound. I have a fire going behind me, Drake silently handing me a knife, which I press against the wound, cauterizing it. She screams again, hysterically, and I pull it away, handing it back to Drake, who no doubt, has placed it back into the flames. "Where is the location?" I ask quietly. All she has to do is tell me and I might stop. Then again, I might not. I was having too much fun with her, and after everything she'd done, she didn't deserve to die a painless death. "You!" she spits out, trying hard to kick at me. I hear Damien mutter to Drake, "Hope Winter annihilates her. God, I wish I could get in there." I say nothing, circling Mother like she's my prey. I place the shears against the big toe on her other foot. Then chomp it off with the shears, taking the knife from Drake and cauterizing the wound while Mother whimpers like the pathetic she is. "I think I will take my leave," Drake says from behind me. I turn around and study his face. "I'm sorry, but I have no stomach for torture," he breathes, his pallor looking quite pale. I give him a small nod, Damien taking his place, with a wry look at the back of his twin. "Guess we aren't exactly alike," he murmurs, "either that or it's because of what she's put us through, but my God, I wish I could get my hands on her." "Patience," I chide him. "You're despicable," Mother hisses behind me and I whirl around, my eyes boring into hers as my lips curl back in a smirk. Despicable. I repeat, no, your despicable mother. You sold Drake to Vanessa, you tricked us into believing that you loved us, and you tried to kill your other son by forcing him to hunt. If anyone here is despicable, I say with a chilling laugh, it's you. She glares at me. I blink my eyes at her and then grab hold of a knife. I examine it, seeing it shine brightly in the flames flickering around us from the fire. The location, I say sweetly. She just hangs her head in answer. Great, that means more work for me. I step up and eye her back. Slowly I plunge the blade into her right shoulder and move it, hearing her yelp as her flesh sizzles and burns, eventually spelling out slut in large letters. I watch the blood trickle downwards, droplets falling to the floor. That word suits her, Damien comments from the shadows. I give him a grin. Thanks, I thought so too, I mutter. Is that all you've got? Mother shouts, incensed and angry. Winter, you're pathetic. She hoarsely laughs. This is never going to make me talk. So do your worst, she sneers, because I can take it. You're nothing but a filthy hirebid, she says frantically. Eventually you'll lose patience and kill me. Your kind can't help itself. God, I hated listening to her ramble on. Damien glowers at her as I stop him, surging forwards. Stop, don't listen to her, Damien, I say urgently. She's trying to get one of us to lose our tempers. She wants us to kill her. He huffs and calms down. I shake my head at him. Sometimes Damien is such a hothead. I sigh and flex my arms. I have a feeling I'm going to be here for a while. I gingerly hold the knife and wrinkle my nose. I can smell Mother's blood, and it smells sickly sweet, with a hint of bitterness. The metallic scent is on my tongue and I swallow, tasting it, savoring it. My mother watches me carefully, eyeing me warily, as I go behind her once again. This time I begin to saw off a huge chunk of her flesh, throwing it to the ground. She flinches and hisses, before throwing her head back and screaming as I lick the tip of the knife. Mother screams, kicking out and flailing around. God, it hurts, she howls. Hey! She's not so arrogant as she was a minute or two ago. I guess pain will do that to a person. Damien folds his arms and leans against the wall, his eyes taking everything in. So far, he's had no complaints. Take it, that hurt, I whisper into her ear, as she whimpers. Let's do it again, shall we? No, she screeches. I raise my hand with the knife and then pause, waiting. Are you ready to give me the information? I growl. She sniffles. Then her whole body slumps. For a minute there I was so close. The hand comes down, sawing away at more of her flesh, ripping it off and letting it crash to the floor. Yuck! I try not to look too closely. She shrieks and screams, trembling all over. I wonder if she felt the pain of Lexus dying. If she has, she hasn't shown it. She's been stubborn and prideful. But that will only get her so far. I'm thankful that Sam is sleeping. He was tired, that poor kid, and practically fell asleep the instant his head hit the covers. Maybe Drake's checking on him. They seemed to hit it off when they first saw each other. Give up the location, I sneer, or you'll continue to feel pain, Mother. She doesn't look up. I place the knife down and grab hold of my next instrument, a silver flogger. It was going to hurt against the exposed bits of flesh I'd ripped off. I crack it once, twice, experimentally, watching her body stiffen. The light in her eyes is slowly fading away, as though Mother has finally come to the realization that she isn't getting out of here, or that the torture is going to end anytime soon. I hit her, her body convulsing from the sheer pain. Her screams are twice as loud and her voice is hoarse, her body slightly swinging. She glares at me. I blink my eyes at her and then grab hold of a knife. I examine it, seeing it shine brightly in the flames flickering around us from the fire. "Dear God," Mother wails, "it hurts so bad," she gasps. "Well, that was the point." I yank her by the hair and whisper into her ear again, "Give it up and all of this stops, I promise her," my voice dripping with honey. "Don't you want it to stop?" "Yes," she sobs, "but I still can't tell you." I give a grimace, feeling frustrated, wanting her to break. Another few rounds of the whip, and she still continues to elude me. It's exasperating. I stomp my foot as I walk back to Damien. "She was close before," I say thickly, "and now she's silent as the grave." I expect Damien to demand to take over, or to just do it. But instead he places a hand on my shoulder. "Don't give up," he tells me firmly. "She's a tough cookie, but you are stronger. We need this information, remember? It's vital. So get you back in there and finish it," he hisses. I scowl at him, then melt and place down the flogger. I pick up some thumbtacks and begin to place them under her fingernails. She squirms and cries out, before I place the dagger in her thigh and leave it there, letting her flesh bubble away and sizzle. Her hair is next. I wrap it around my arm and yank her head back hard, her eyes widening as I begin to cut it off, dangerously close to the scalp. I keep hold of it and walk around her, showing her hair to her as she sobs. "Not so pretty now," I taunt her, "are you, Mother?" She wails, "I hate you," she screams, spittle flying everywhere. "All of you can go to hell," she shrieks. I tisk at her, "You first." I distantly hear the sound of a door opening and then Kai's scent comes drifting into the room. I can smell Jonathan as well, both boys being extra quiet as they make their way down the stairs. I have one last option to try and I dart over to Mother, my eyes gleaming with hope. "I'll make you one of me," I declare, piercing her skin with my fangs. "No, no, no," she screams, as I begin to suck. "Don't. I won't be a hybrid, I won't," she yells out, her body beginning to completely relax. I pull my teeth from her skin and eye her. "Talk, or I make you like me, Mother," I threaten, "a disgusting hybrid. You'll be one of the things you despise most in this world." "I'll talk," she says weakly, "but promise me you won't do it." "I promise," I breathe. Kai, Jonathan, and Damien come closer, all of us pricking our ears as she begins to mumble a bunch of numbers at us. "CO ordinates," mutters Jonathan, scribbling them down. "They must be CO ordinates to where they are keeping them." "How many hunters are waiting?" I ask. "I don't know, maybe over 100, Mother snaps, breathing heavily. "The whole place is guarded by hunters and military personnel," she says triumphantly. I feel sick to my stomach. God, she has no idea the magnitude of what she's done. I slap her hard across the face and turn to Kai. "We have our answers," I tell him steadily. "There's no need to keep her." "What if she's lying?" "I'm not," Mother bursts out. "We ignore her. My tech team are on it, we'll know in 2 minutes if she's lying," Kai murmurs, his eyes glazed over. We all wait impatiently. Kai's eyes go back to normal. She's not lying, he says simply, and that's all the reassurance that we need. I hear a sickening cracking noise and glance over to see that Damien had broken Mother's neck, leaving her hanging there and swaying slightly. He raises an eyebrow at us. We need to get moving, and she was a liability, he grumbles. Kai says nothing and we all begin to file upwards, one by one. It was time to get a plan together. Kai POV, when can we move? Whispers Winter a bit impatiently, from her position behind a shrub. We're a fair distance away from the location, milling about, waiting for the rest of the men to show up. Jonathan is close by, directing his own men to get into position. King Axel is mere minutes away. When the king gets here, I hiss back, trying not to show my own impatience. Damien and Drake are with Langdon, preparing themselves for what we are about to do. I glance over at the building in the distance. It's old, decrepit, and a warehouse which sold who knows what at one time. It would look abandoned if you glanced at it, but the men in the distance, holding rifles and guarding it, told a completely different story. From what my tech team had advised, the majority of the men were either guarding, or inside guarding what looked like large cages, with people inside of them. Thank goodness Simon had stayed behind. The last thing I needed was to try and be looking after that kid on top of everything else. Even if he hadn't quite been happy to be left behind. King Axel is approaching, Drake tells us calmly. I give a start. He'd been so quiet I hadn't heard his footsteps, or maybe it was because there were so many of us, scattered around the perimeter. Good, I hiss back, Winter brightening at the words. She was dying to get inside and help get the prisoners out. I'm both proud of my mate and extremely nervous about her going inside. I can't afford to lose her, but I know, deep down, she's more than capable of taking care of herself. Alpha Chi King Axel greets me grimly, surveying the small army with a frown as he directs his own people to join the perimeters of our group. King Axel, I say with a small smile, I wish we were meeting under different circumstances. He gives a short laugh. It's got a twinge of bitterness towards it. I guess he's still smarting over Vanessa and how she'd managed to get him completely under her spell. It is what it is, he says drily. Now is this all the people we have? It's all we could amass in such a short time frame, I answer, a little on edge. Was he criticizing me? How many hunters are there? He asks. I grimace. At least 50 outside. Inside it's hard to tell. There are human beings inside, scientists. I'm not considering them as threats, but they also aren't innocent, and I won't be sad if they lose their lives, I say honestly as he grunts his approval. Snipers? He asks. I have a few set up outside the perimeter, ready to shoot on command. Drake and Damien will be outside with Langdon, taking care of those threats. You, Winter and the rest of the men besides those with my beta, will make our way inside the building and take down those who are guarding the cages. If the scientists attempt to intervene, the men have orders to kill them as well. I won't have them risk their lives for human beings capable of injuring them. Good man, says Axel quietly, our people must be protected as best as we can. Now, let's get these pores out of their prison, he says stiffly. I turn to Damien and Drake. Gather your men, Langdon, you're in charge. Prepare to attack the outside of the building and the grounds. Langdon gives me a stiff nod. Winter quickly gives her brothers a hug. Be careful, she whispers thickly, and come back to me alive. Same goes to you, sister, Drake says, hugging her tight, Damien doing the same. They both glare at me. Keep her safe, warns Damien, the threat in his voice easy to hear. I give Langdon a handshake. Be careful out there, I say in a hushed voice, and good luck. You too, he says stiffly. I watch a group of men walk away with them, as we ready ourselves into position. We were going to take advantage of the attack and burst right on through the doors. We would have the element of surprise. Or at least, that's what I hoped. A few minutes later, we heard the sounds of shouting, gunfire, and saw smoke. That was our signal. Winter stepped beside me and together we shifted, King Axel doing the same as our men followed suit. We hit the ground running, paws thudding madly. I dodged and weaved as shifters and hunters fought each other, sometimes clawing and swiping to help as we ran through the crowd, heading straight for the two large doors at the very front of the building. I don't even hesitate, ripping the doors off their hinges. There is startled shouting and some screams as I run inside, Winter and King Axel right behind me. I barrel right into a hunter and quickly tear their throat out before they can even so much as reach for their weapon. I pause and survey the inside, seeing several doors leading to different rooms, a huge flurry of activity as the scientists in particular get up and run towards the exit, leaving the hunters behind. Shouts a hunter, shoot them, he screams. I take a move towards him, but see Winter's wolf barrel into him first, her claws swiping furiously, blood staining her fur as she continues to fight. It gives me time to pause, seeing my men and King Axel's dashing about madly as they worked in tandem to take down the hunters together. I feel a hunter come up behind me and turn, growling furiously. He has his gun moved to his shoulder, his eyes scanning my every move, a smirk on his face. One that won't be there for long, I might add. Because I jump as he pulls the trigger, the dart hitting the wall and bouncing off it as gouge him in the eyes and sink my teeth into his neck. I begin to drink, loving the taste of his blood, the sweetness of it, with the merest hint of tartness as an aftertaste. I drain him dry and then let his body slump to the ground. In the background I can hear cries for help. I wonder where Jonathan is. He was supposed to come with us, but then I spot him at the large cages in the back, kneeling beside one in particular, looking frantic. Help, a woman is pleading weakly, Jonathan touching her hand. Get us out of here, she begs. I shift and grab hold of a scientist who is valiantly trying to sneak around me towards the exit. I grip him by the throat and squeeze, hard, making him gulp, his hands flailing uselessly at me. Where are the keys? I ask pleasantly, moving my head at him and eyeing him with a hard expression on my face. He swallows and then points with a shaking hand to the far corner, where a rather large and brutish-looking man is frantically trying to leave, his hands shaking so much he can't get the door open. He has them, the scientist says weakly. He's the only one who is allowed to have them. I drop the poor scientist to the floor and race towards the brutish man, who turns and sees me coming. He renews his efforts, but it's hopeless. Even in human form I'm faster than the average human. I swing my hand right at him and punch the man hard in the jaw as he turns. He stumbles back, a look of panic on his face. All around us are the sounds of shifters still fighting the hunters, and he turns pale as he sees what's happening around him still. What do you want? He stammers. I narrow my eyes. The keys to the cages, I snarl, holding out my hand. This man is no hunter, but rather a military man, not used to fighting but merely issuing orders. He reaches into his pocket and withdraws a ring of keys, plunking them in my hand. The silver burns, but I don't let him see that it bothers me, and instead I punch him again, this time knocking him unconscious as his body hits the wall and then the ground. A few minutes later, we heard the sounds of shouting, gunfire, and saw smoke. That was our signal. Winter stepped beside me and together we shifted, King Axel doing the same as our men followed suit. We hit the ground running, paws thudding madly. I dodged and weaved as shifters and hunters fought each other, sometimes clawing and swiping to help as we ran through the crowd, heading straight for the two large doors at the very front of the building. "Don't go anywhere," I mutter, walking away and heading towards Jonathan. Winter has joined him and is trying to reassure some of the children in the cages, which I was disgusted to see. It was one thing to take adults, but to experiment on children? Cowards! Winter quickly takes hold of the keys, wincing as the silver burns her flesh. She opens the first cage and several small children come flying out, some sobbing as they hug her. I sniff. They aren't all shifter children. In fact, I was reasonably certain that at least 2 were vampires. Winter hands the keys to me and I open the next one, letting out a startled-looking man, who was a bear shifter. He barely muttered a quick thank you before he shifted and lumbered towards the hunters, one of whom let out a shriek as he saw the large grizzly bear coming towards him. I grin. The bear joins in the fight, the shifters not even pausing as they continue. It's mayhem, but we were doing our jobs and getting out the prisoners. That's all that mattered. The third cell held a bunch of angry-looking vampires. I open the door and brace myself. After all, vampires don't traditionally like shifters, but they all stay still, looking at each other. The man in the front finally steps forward, looking a bit apprehensive. He's dressed rather smartly for a vampire, in a suit, with smart polished shoes. I half suspect he might be part of the royal family. "Many thanks," the vampire man says heartily, shooting his men a look. "We are in your debt. If you would step aside, we would like to join in the fight." I step aside as the vampires give each other thirsty grins. They saunter out and survey the scene, hands on hips. Then together they race towards several scientists. I open my mouth to object, then shrug. For all I know, the scientists experimented on these men and were getting their just desserts. Only one vampire male stays behind, going over to the children, in particular the 2 who smelt like them, and hugged them tight. "Daddy," they sobbed, the 2 little boys, faces creased in their upset, letting go of Winter. Jonathan turns his head towards me. "Alpha Chi," he calls, his eyes looking at me anxiously. "Would you mind unlocking this door?" he adds, still kneeling beside it. I wonder at the strangeness of his voice, for it's hoarse but also tight, like he's anxious about something. I move closer in curiosity. The cell contains one female, who is stunning with raven black hair and big blue eyes, her body, covered in an assortment of bruises and cuts. Even from here, I can see that she's had blood drawn at the very least, needle marks in her arms. She looks terrified, even as Jonathan tries to reassure her that she is all right. Winter quietly makes her way over. "You'll be all right," she whispers to the woman who is backed in the corner, crouching and trembling all over. "We're here now. Hurry, hisses Jonathan. I frown at him but obligingly put the key in the lock as he watches, his jaw clenched tight. It's a shifter in the cell, that I can tell just by her scent. But from the way that Jonathan is acting, it was like he couldn't stand to see her in the cell for one more moment. I throw the door open and he quietly goes inside, careful to avoid the bars best he can as she stays there, her eyes wide, staring at him as he approaches. Winter places a hand on my arm, an intent look in her eyes. But none of us were expecting the word that came out of Jonathan's mouth just then, as he tenderly touched the woman's arm and looked into her eyes deeply. That one word that he growled, as both Winter and I looked on in shock, was mate. Winter POV, it's utter chaos and mayhem. I can hear screams from behind me, the sound of running footsteps as people attempt to flee from the building. But what catches my eye is the cages or cells, located in the far back. The sound of children crying penetrates my ears and I run, in wolf form towards them, taking out one hunter in my way, easily tearing through his neck and letting his body drop to the floor. I can see Kai fighting in the background as I get there, and soon enough, the children and other occupants of the cages are free. 2 children smell off, like vampires, and they greet a vampire male let free, calling out "Daddy," which melts my heart. The other children, 2 of them, stay there, looking miserable, dirt on their pale faces, blonde hair disheveled and matted. The little girl is crying softly, hugging the other one. Both look to be roughly the same age, about 4 years old. Her plait is almost non-existent, so many hairs have come out of it, and the young boy is clutching her tightly, not wanting to let her go. I go towards them, but they flinch and look back at me with terrified looks on their faces. I frown. I'd shifted to human form, but they were still afraid of me. The fighting appears to be diminishing and I glance over my shoulder, seeing Langdon, Damien, and Drake appearing. The little children suddenly brighten, to my shock, as they too look up and see my brothers. Twins, the little girl breathes out, her eyes wide, blue eyes sparkling as she glances at the other boy, whom I've surmised is her brother. A look, just like our daddy was. I blanch. "Where is your daddy?" I ask quietly. She turns to me, her lips trembling. "He was with us, but the lady took him away and he never came back," she sniffled. "The lady looked like you," she finished. Oh God! Had mother been involved with this father of theirs and his death? Because I have no doubt that she would have killed him, or experimented on him until he was gone. "What about your mother?" I ask gently as my brothers approach. Kai comes up and kneels next to me, listening intently to the conversation. "Died trying to stop them taking us." My God! I could hear the pain in his voice. "Hi," Damien says nervously. Him, Drake and Langdon must have all shifted outside before coming in. I can smell blood on them and wrinkle my nose as I gesture towards the children. "Hello," the little girl says, taking hold of a startled Drake's hand. "I'm Millie, what's your name?" Drake gives her a friendly smile. "I'm Drake and this is Damien, and my mate Langdon," he says, introducing them all together. She gives him a beaming smile and throws herself into his arms. Drake's arms wrap around her tightly as she snuggles into him. "You're a twin like my daddy was," she tells him. He stays silent, embracing her and picking her up off the ground as she clings to him like a koala bear. "That's my brother, Jinx," Millie whispers, pointing at the little boy who is approaching a rather apprehensive Langdon. The little boy gives Langdon the most brilliant smile and then launches himself at Langdon, who only just catches him in time. "I like you," he says, giggling, and holding on to the man who looks absolutely terrified. "Ahem," coughs Langdon. "I like you too," he says unsurely, glancing over at myself and Kai. "But where are your parents?" I frantically mouth the words, "They're dead," and Langdon's face droops. He holds onto the boy tightly while Damien hovers nearby, scanning the room. "The doors," I say, turning to Kai. "Have they all been inspected and investigated?" He gives a small nod. "There's no one else in the building. These are all that's left. The rooms have basic medical equipment in them and more cages. There's also, according to King Axel, what appears to be a mass grave outside. They've been doing this for a long time, it seems. I can't believe we never caught onto it. If I could get my hands on my mother for doing this, I would torture her 100 times over for what she's done. My heart goes out to the kids." A vampire male, clad in a suit of all things and looking very disheveled, but handsome, I have to admit it, even I swooned a little, approaches us, a bit of blood in the corner of his mouth. "I wish to thank you for freeing me," he says to Kai, extending his hand. His other men, or the ones captured with him in the cage, coming up behind him, including the father with 2 children. "Normally we would not communicate with you, but I sense that you are a hybrid and half vampire. Not only that, but it's time our species learned to speak with one another, to prevent this ever happening again," he adds. "That, I'm in full agreement of." The sounds of fighting cease outside and the rest of the men come filing in human form, breathing heavily, fully exerted. "I agree," Kai says roughly, motioning towards a tired-looking King Axel. "I would like you to meet our king, King Axel," he says. King Axel holds out his hand to the vampire, who grasps it. "I am Prince Jasper of the Vampires," he says with a grin. "It is a pleasure to meet you all." We nod. King Axel looks impressed as he slowly pulls his hand away. "I would love to discuss a treaty with your people, if you would be so willing," he says slowly. Prince Jasper gives a firm nod. "I would very much like that," he murmurs. "You must, however, visit me at the castle, along with these friends of yours that saved me." He glances over at Kai specifically. "We must thank you properly. My people will be very appreciative," he adds. "I have been gone for some months now and no doubt they must think I'm dead." All around us shifters are sitting on the floor or leaning against walls, waiting for further instructions. "How did you get taken?" I asked, and the vampire turns to me, a wry smile on his face. "I was traveling the country, meeting the leaders of the packs, when I was taken before I could get to one. I was shot with a dart while taking a bathroom break," he admits, the tips of his ears turning red. Kai is stifling his laughter. "I just feel bad for him. That was a horrible way to be taken down. When you're at your most vulnerable." Sabriel is snickering in my mind. I can picture it in my mind. Winter, oh that's hilarious. I wonder if his pants were down when they shot him. That's not nice, Sabriel, it could happen to anyone. Yeah, but it's funny, admit it. A vampire prince, taking a bathroom break, is shot by hunters. My God, it's like a terrible tale to warn people about. Be careful about doing your business in the woods, a hunter might shoot you. Sabriel, I wonder if he was peeing or doing number twos. LOL, my stomach hurts from laughing so much. Sabriel, That's not very friendly of you. Oh hush. Best friends laugh at each other. I'm sure if this had happened to a shifter he'd be laughing his ass off. It's a joke. She snorts and then begins to laugh in my mind, loudly, and I'm forced to put a block up, so that I don't end up doing the same. The poor man is embarrassed enough already. We would like to help you clean up this mess, Prince Jasper continues, cheeks slightly flushed as he gestures at the building. What exactly were you planning to do? This time I speak up, my voice firm. Burn it down to the ground. I don't want anything from this place. It needs to go. King Axel nods and then speaks up. Everyone is to get to the safe point outside and wait, except for those who are coming back with what we need. I turn to Damien, Drake, and Langdon, two of whom are still holding sobbing children. Get them to safety. We can help, Langdon begins to say, but I cut him off, shaking my head. These children need you right now. Millie and Jinx trust you, so don't give them to anyone else. Besides, Kai and I are capable of doing this, along with King Axel. If I could get my hands on my mother for doing this, I would torture her 100 times over for what she's done. My heart goes out to the kids. A vampire male, clad in a suit of all things and looking very disheveled, but handsome, I have to admit it, even I swooned a little, approaches us, a bit of blood in the corner of his mouth. I will also help, Prince Jasper says. The rest of you go outside with the shifters, he adds, eyeing the father and kids meaningfully. The vampire nods and grabs his children, racing them outside. Within minutes, the building is completely clear besides a few of us, gasoline in all of our hands. It needs to be spread throughout the entire building, King Axel instructs, the more the better. Let this hellhole burn to the ground, and everything it contains with it. Kai and I begin to spread out the gasoline, while Jasper and King Axel go into the other rooms and do the same. It's not very hard, but we're careful, tedious, wanting the building to burn to a crisp. There's all sorts of things that might still remain, including the cells, but all the useful equipment, computers, tranquilizers etc. would be gone. Not to mention it would be inhabitable for them to use ever again. A lot of hunters had died today, as well as some scientists, and their bodies would burn alongside it. A warning to future hunters, that we wouldn't stand for this, nor would we show any mercy towards them. Burn, baby burn. Sabriel, you've just put that song in my head. It's a good song, you should thank me. I've heard your taste of music, it's terrible. It's not that bad, you're exaggerating. Actually calling it terrible was being polite. You suck at choosing music. I dread you putting music on. You're mean. I'm truthful. Which is also the same as being mean sometimes, but sometimes the truth hurts. This is one of those times. Sabriel, I'm going to kill you one of these days. No you won't, you love me too much. Should have left the block up. I shake my head in resignation and join Kai, dropping the gasoline tin on the ground as King Axel and Prince Jasper rejoin us. All done, every single room, Prince Jasper says with some satisfaction. Nothing will be left once it starts. King Axel nods. I sigh. Let's go, I motion towards everyone, digging in my pocket for the matches I'd been given before I burn your asses as well. We trudge outside. It's nighttime now, we've been fighting for hours and I was tired, incredibly tired. I lift my head to the sky and breathe deeply, as the others begin to walk away. It was all over, we'd saved a few lives and beaten the hunters. My mother was gone, forever, as was my father. I can hear the children in the distance and the other shifters. Prince Jasper suddenly appears back to my side. Come to my castle, he urges instead of back to the pack. Let us show you our hospitality and thank you. Besides, it saves you traveling back and forth, he adds, and I laugh. All right, I grin, before grabbing a match from the small box and showing it to him, but first let's deal with business. I light the match and then throw it towards the building, turning and running for my life, Prince Jasper beside me, Kai on the other, King Axel already well gone. We reach the other shifters as we hear a loud boom and feel the ground beneath our feet quaking. The building is alight, flames everywhere. We stay, watching, observing, as the rest of the shifters and vampires go home. We make sure it burns right down to the ground, leaving behind charred remains, before we move. King Axel, Kai, Prince Jasper, and myself then begin the journey to his castle, where he will no doubt be warmly welcomed home from a loving family that has been missing him for months. I find myself excited to see what it's like to be in a vampire pack and castle. Would it differ from how werewolves run their packs, or are we more similar to them than we ever imagined? I was about to find out. Langdon POV. The drive back to the pack house is quiet, pensive. The two children, Millie and Jinx, are watching us from the back seats, wide-eyed, a very uncomfortable-looking Drake, sitting in the middle. The two had taken to Drake, as though he was a favored uncle of theirs, and had not let go of his hands the entire time we'd been in the car. The little girl, Millie, was staring out the window, her lower lip trembling, and I could discern there was tears in the corner of her eyes. She was trying not to cry, her hair disheveled, her body covered in bruises and dirt. Jinx was in roughly the same condition, and I wondered how long they had been in that building, and what exactly they had gone through. Langdon. Millie says quietly, a hitch in her breath, "What's going to happen to us?" I keep my eyes on the road, trying to think about what to say. I'm not sure. I finally admit, "Do you have any other family? Do you know what pack you came from?" She sniffles. "No. Mummy and Daddy were all we had." Silence. Drake pats the child awkwardly on the back while Jinx sticks his thumb in his mouth and begins to suck at it. "We'll see if maybe you have family out there," I say. "Maybe your mummy and daddy had a brother or sister that could take you in." She looks at me with dead eyes. "We don't have anyone else," she says, turning to Drake and leaning into him. "We want to stay with you guys." Jinx pulls his thumb out of his mouth. "Stay with you," he squeals and puts the thumb back in. Damien looks at me with concern. "Can we do that?" he asks in a whisper. "Can we take them in?" We pull up into the driveway to our home. It was late. Simon was hopefully asleep in the pack house and we would check on him tomorrow. "I don't know," I tell Damien honestly. I climb out of the driver's side door while Damien goes and unlocks the front door of our place. The kids open the side doors to the SUV on their own, and scramble out, staring at me anxiously. "I think you both must be tired," I say as kindly as possible as they stare up at me. "Maybe we should get you into a bath and then bed." "I'm hungry," they both say in unison, stomachs growling loudly. I have to laugh. "All right, food first." We sit at the dining table. Drake orders pizza, and when it arrives, the children's eyes open in disbelief, mouths open in shock. I frown. Have they never had pizza before? Ever? It was like a staple in my house, especially when I couldn't be bothered to cook. I didn't expect Damien and Drake to always cook either. The pizza smelled heavenly and I inhaled it, watching the kids' faces grow with excitement. Carefully I placed a slice in front of each of them, before the rest of us helped ourselves. Millie was cautious, sniffing it curiously, before taking a tentative bite of the cheesy concoction. Her eyes widened and then she licked her lips, turning to Jinx, who was holding his piece limply in one hand. "It's yummy," she told him excitedly, and he nodded, carefully eyeing it, before taking the smallest nibble. He swallowed and then greedily took several large bites, almost inhaling the food, while his sister Millie followed suit. It was adorable and concerning. When was the last time these two had eaten? They ate several slices between them, their eyes growing sleepy as they sat there, consuming the last piece on their plates. "Whoa," whispered Damien, "those two were hungry." "Shhh, it's probably been a while since those two have gotten a chance to eat," muttered Drake, "in which case I say have at it. Let them eat what they can. I was more worried about them being sick after such a large meal." Millie sat back in her chair, looking very dwarfed in it, her chin barely reaching the table, and patted her stomach, looking extremely satisfied, a yawn escaping her lips. Jinx smacked his lips together, let out a large burp and sat back, content and tired. I stifled a sigh. It had been a big day for everyone and it was growing exceedingly late, but I wanted to get them nice and clean. Then realization dawned: we had no clothes for the children to sleep in. I wanted to smack the palm of my hand against my face in frustration. "Drake," I said, turning to him, "can you go and ask one of the pack families with kids around the same age for some night clothes to borrow? We can try and get them some clothes tomorrow, but for now, this is the easiest solution." He nods and gives me a wink. Despite myself, my heart flutters. He just has that affect on me. "I know just the family," he declares and gets up, leaving the table and two disappointed-looking children, who then look to me and Damien for instructions. In the meantime, I say, yawning myself, "Time for a quick bath, you two." They actually look excited at the prospect as Damien begins to get them up from the chairs and herd them upstairs towards our bathroom. I fill the tub and then turn to Millie, who is hovering in the doorway, watching my every move, her big blue eyes blinking at me. "Come here, sweetheart," I urge, and she walks to me, a little apprehensive, looking over her shoulder at Jinx, who is behind her. "Let's get your clothes off," I say kindly, and without needing help or prompting, she wriggles out of her messy and dirty top, pulling her pants and underwear down and kicking them off. Her feet were bare and covered in scratches. I gingerly pulled out her hair tie, which was almost completely buried in her matted hair, and then lifted her into the tub as she gave a squeal and giggled. I felt a hand on my chest and looked over to see that Jinx was standing there, unclothed, Damien holding the clothes in his hands and giving me a sad smile. Jinx has bruises on his body and scratches as well. I lift him up and place him in the bath with his sister, Jinx happily plopping himself down in the water and splashing it. "We need to do their hair," Damien says, eyeing Millie's worriedly. "It needs to be untangled." "It's also late," I say tiredly, "and we can't have them go to bed with wet hair." "That will have to wait until tomorrow morning," I conclude grimly, "when we have several hours to do it." These guys are sleepy and need to rest. He sighs but sees my point. I'll go and prepare some beds for them. Millie's ears prick up. I thought we were sleeping with yous, she says, pouting. I want to sleep with you, Jinx says to us, looking worried now. I want to groan out loud. Thank heavens I'd gotten a larger bed now that Drake was my mate as well, but it would still be a bit of a tight fit with 2 children between all 3 of us. But I also didn't have the heart to separate them from each other, or force them to sleep away from us. They had been through enough, I wouldn't traumatize them any further if I could help it. You can sleep with us, I say as Damien nods at them, but it's only for one night, I add as they give us beaming smiles. Christ, they are so cute, it's all I can do not to swoop down and hug them. What is wrong with me? My wolf finds them intriguing and likes them. He's already beginning to look on them as pups. I'll put fresh sheets on, Damien offers. Thanks. Is that Drake? I ask as the door downstairs opens and closes. Yes, shouts Drake, and I have clothes for them. Brilliant. I suspected the water was getting cold from the shivering of the 2 siblings, but they didn't look like they wanted to get out of the tub. Hey guys, I say to Millie and Jinx as Damien disappears and Drake reappears in the room, it's time to get out now, but you can have another bath tomorrow morning. Millie's lip quivers but she looks at Jinx, who is shivering madly now, and gives a small smile, getting up and helping her brother up. Okay, she agrees. Jinx just nods. Drake, I said, turning to him, can you go and ask one of the pack families with kids around the same age, for some night clothes to borrow? We can try and get them some clothes tomorrow, but for now, this is the easiest solution. I grab a towel and pick up Millie first, wrapping her in it and drying her off as she giggles at me. I send her into the bedroom where Drake begins to help her get dressed. All right, Jinx, your turn, I tell him, grabbing him and a fresh towel and drying him off as he just stayed silent and took it. I take hold of his hand and feel a pang in my chest as I feel how little and how cold his hand was. I pull him into the room where Drake has successfully changed Millie, who is now wearing a nightgown and fresh underwear. Damien has just finished changing the sheets and blankets on the bed as well. Jinx lets go of my hand and Drake kneels down, holding out the clothes. They are flannelette pajamas with dinosaurs on them, and the little boy's eyes light up. Here, Jinx, Drake says softly, helping him into the underwear, pants, and then helping to do up the buttons on the shirt. Now you'll be nice and warm, he adds. The boy beams at him and my breath catches in my throat. How sweet this all seems. How right. I blink back tears and then glance at the bed meaningfully. Millie glances at it as well and goes over to it, touching the sheets and looking happy. Bed, she says, jumping up and down on her toes. Then she looks over at Damien. Story? She asks. You want me to read you a story? Damien asks. The little girl nods. Jinx nods. Damien looks a bit uncertain. I shrug. I don't exactly possess children's books. Something else that I'd have to consider while shopping. Make it up, Drake tells him cheerfully, swiping the clothes off the bathroom floor and putting them in the hamper. Damien glares at him. Then his eyes soften. All right, but both of you get into bed, he says, and they shake their heads. You first, demands Millie. Damien sighs. He slowly pulls the covers back and gets in, Jinx and Millie climbing in beside him. They stare at me and Drake and I begin to feel uncomfortable. "Get in," Millie says stubbornly. She points at the bed. Drake gives a small huff of laughter and gets in beside Millie, while I hesitate. There was so much I still needed to do. Pack business and all that, not to mention that Winter and Kai had gone to Prince Jasper's castle. But I couldn't deny this sweet little girl's request. I doubt any grown man could. You would have to have a heart of stone, and I sadly do not possess that. I turn the light off and get in, Drake snuggling against me, while the children snuggle against each other and Damien. "Story," chirps Jinx. I stifle my grin and wait for Damien to start, wondering what kind of story he was going to be able to make up on the spot. Damien clears his throat. "Ahem," he says. "Once upon a time there lived a girl with her parents and her older brother," he continued. I knew what he was doing. He was going to tell them about his and Winter's story. But within minutes the sound of soft snores fill the room as Millie and Jinx fall asleep. Damien lets out a relieved sigh and ends the story abruptly. All of us are silent for a moment, listening to the children, feeling warm and content in the bed. "Hey Langdon," Damien says quietly. Yet I say gruffly, as Drake's arm winds around my waist. "Can we keep them?" he asks. Drake's voice sounds just then as well, "Please." I knew then, that if we couldn't find their family we would be adopting these two little rascals. Within hours, Damien, Drake, and I had all lost our hearts to them and each other. A family was at our fingertips, and the possibility, instead of scaring me, filled me with excitement. I had always wanted a family. Now, it was entirely possible I might have one of my very own. Kai POV: the journey to the prince's castle is arduous but full of excitement. When we pull up, I can't help but stare in awe as we all gather together outside of it. Prince Jasper's expression is smug, but also happy, grateful to be back home. We don't even make it 2 steps when guards suddenly appear, vampires of course, their red eyes glowing in the dark. Winter grabs hold of my hand and squeezes it, while King Axel merely examines his fingernails, not fussed in the least. Prince Jasper looks annoyed more than anything. "Halt," says one of the guards gruffly. "What is your business here, especially foul creatures such as yourselves?" King Axel gives a hiss and I notice his eyes turn pitch black at the insult. Prince Jasper looks incredulous. "Do you not recognize your own prince?" thunders Prince Jasper. "Apologize for that insult at once. These are good friends of mine." The guards peer at him and then recognition dawns on the one who had insulted us shifters. He shifts uncomfortably on one foot. "Prince Jasper, we had thought you to be dead," muttered the guard, blinking at us and offering a very insincere apology. "Well, I'm not," huffed Prince Jasper and then motioned towards the other guards. "Inform the king and queen I'm home," he says with a glare, and take that guard. He points to the one who offered such a pathetic apology to the dungeon for now. The guard opens his mouth to protest, but the others drag him away, 2 others darting off, presumably to tell the queen and king their son had come home. "I cannot abide rudeness to guests," Prince Jasper says when we glance at him nor to me. Seconds later, 2 more vampires come dashing out, despite the lateness of the hour. The woman looks like Prince Jasper with the same hair color, clad in a long plait and sparkling blue eyes, which were currently brimming with tears. She wore a white nightgown, and a dressing gown over the top of it. The male is tall and very forbidden looking, with brown eyes and a grim expression on his face. He's taller than me and well built. I cringe, wondering how they will take to shifters being visitors to their castle. Jasper, screams the woman, flinging herself at him. Jasper catches her and hugs her tight, as she sobs on his shoulder. We thought you might be dead, she sniffles. We've been looking for you for months. I'm back, mother, and it's all thanks to these people, he says, pointing at King Axel, Winter, and myself. They saved me and a few others as well. They have my deepest gratitude and are here as my guests. Then you are most welcome, and you have the gratitude from ourselves as well, says the man gruffly, patting Jasper on the back. I am King Stefan and this is my wife Queen Arabelle. It's a pleasure to meet you all, said Queen Arabelle, reluctantly stepping back from her son and regarding us with warm smiles. I cannot thank you enough for saving my precious son. She reaches out and hugs all of us. King Stefan offers us all a handshake. It is late and you are most certainly tired, Queen Arabelle says kindly, perhaps taking in Winter's pale pallor and slightly swaying body. Let us show you to some rooms so that you might get some rest. Thank you very much, Winter says with some relief in her voice. She must be more tired than I thought. The king and queen are most gracious, showing us to our room, while King Axel is placed in one a little further along. I wish you all a very good night and we'll see you all in the morning, Prince Jasper says, shaking our hands again. Do you require some food? Something to drink perhaps? Winter hesitates and Jasper sees it. Maybe something simple like sandwiches, she asks quietly. I have to admit I'm quite hungry. Consider it done, Jasper says with a twinkle in his eye, his mother nodding behind him with a wide smile. We thank them all and close the door. To my shock, Winter instantly turns green and bolts towards the connecting bathroom, sinking to her knees and vomiting profusely into the toilet. Her body is shaking. I rush towards her, concerned out of my mind, wondering if the long drive had gotten to her. She continues to heave as I gently rub her back, the color completely gone from her face. Ugh, she groans, resting her head against the bowl. I think that's everything gone from my stomach. I continue to rub her back. Was it the drive? I asked. I would have stopped if you had told me you were unwell. She shakes her head, still looking incredibly pale and green. No, just feel a bit off. It wasn't the drive. Maybe after I have something to eat, it will be better. Maybe it was all the fighting we did. I suggest. She still looks hesitant. Hey Kai, I think it might be something else. Do you remember when you were under Vanessa's spell? What you did? Sort of. But I only remember bits and pieces. Not everything. Are you telling me you do, Storm? Not really, but I have a sneaking suspicion. If I'm right then. If you loved it then you should have put a ring on it. Seriously, Storm. You're starting with this again. I'm trying to give you a hint, you stupid man. Ooh, why has the moon goddess cursed me with a man as dumb as you? She truly is a cruel woman. Storm, that's hurtful, you know. You're hurting me by being so dense. Why couldn't I have been the man? I'm so much better at it. Oh, the cruel, cruel world I'm forced to live in. Stop being so damn melodramatic and pull yourself together already. Anyone would think you were hard done by. I'm insulted at how you talk to me. That's it. I'm not telling you, figure it out yourself. Storm puts a block up, utterly infuriated with me. Did I just lose an argument to my wolf? What? I shake my head. The better explain himself, or so help me I'll. What? There was nothing I could do. I'm seething as I help Winter get to her feet. Now I also had that stupid song in my head. Thanks so much, Storm. There's a knock on the door and I sit Winter down on the large four-poster bed, before crossing the bedroom and opening it. A woman in a maid's uniform stands there, looking hesitant, a large tray of sandwiches on her hand and a pitcher of fresh water in the other. Prince Jasper sent me to give you these, she says, looking flustered. I notice there's 2 glasses on the tray with sandwiches as well. Quickly I grab the tray off her, giving her a warm smile. Thank you, I say, as she enters the room and quickly puts the pitcher on top of the dresser. We appreciate it. We know how late it is. Yes, thank you, says Winter weakly. The woman gives us a friendly smile. It's no problem at all, she tells us. Anything that the prince requires of us we do. It's our job. Is there anything else you might need? She glances over at Winter, who looks sickly. I think that's it, I check with Winter, who gives a slow nod. My name is Sarah, she says, flipping her long red hair over her shoulder. I am happy to serve you. Miss, if you don't mind me asking, are you sure you don't want something to help with the nausea? Flat lemonade? Some crackers? Winter looks surprised. How did you know I was feeling nauseous? She asked. Your pallor. You smell like us vampires as well as like a shifter. We might be a pale species, she laughs, but your complexion is paler than the palest vampire and your body is shaking slightly, she finishes. She moves her head and looks thoughtful. I wonder what Sarah is thinking about, her green eyes beginning to sparkle, with just the merest hint of redness around them. I can also get a doctor for you if you require one, she suggests. The prince has one on staff just for him. He won't mind if I wake him. I glance at Winter. Winter shakes her head, a rueful smile on her face. Thank you, but I would hate to wake someone from their slumber, she says politely. Perhaps if I still feel sick tomorrow, I might take you up on your offer. The woman brightens. I will leave then. Good night, she calls over her shoulder, leaving briskly. I close the door and turn to Winter, the tray still in my hands. I place it next to Winter, who grabs one and begins to slowly nibble on it, while I pour her a glass of fresh water and hand it to her. I then grab a sandwich and practically inhale it, starving hungry. Slowly Winter's color starts to come back and she happily drains the water. Between us, the tray of sandwiches is slowly demolished and I put the tray up on the dresser. Winter begins to yawn. Her eyelids are fluttering. She's sleepy. I guess food does that to a person, or it's the lateness of the hour. She stands up, swaying, and I quickly pull back the lush bed covers. She climbs in, curling up on her side, and I rush to the bathroom and do my business, before coming back to the bed. In that short amount of time, Winter has fallen fast asleep, snoring gently as I smile and chuckle to myself. She's so adorable, so cute. She also looks like she belongs there as I climb in beside her. I frown, something suddenly coming to my mind as my whole body stiffens. Images in my mind of myself under Vanessa's spell. I'm walking to Winter's room, with a purpose, one that Vanessa had given to me. Then it cuts to me sleeping with Winter, but confused because I'm imagining it's Vanessa, not sure what I'm doing. Just that it has to be done. The look on Winter's face when I called her Vanessa cuts through me deeply. I should have fought harder not to be under that witch's spell. God, I was a right poor. But why had I gone to Winter's room in the first place? What was the mission that Vanessa had given me? I look down at Winter and slowly sniff, realizing for the first time that her scent has changed once again. There's the merest hint of something else, but it's so subtle you wouldn't even realize it was there unless you were specifically looking for it. I close my eyes, sniffing deeply, no longer puzzled at the change, but angry at myself for not realizing this sooner. Then again, what if Winter didn't know or realize yet? With the stress of everything going on, could it have possibly slipped her mind? She was showing all the signs now that I thought about it. The vomiting, the pale complexion, the tiredness. But what if I was wrong? I take a deep breath. This could wait until the morning, but there was a rising excitement inside of me, although the circumstances in which it happened made me feel incredibly guilty. I was a horrible mate, I could accept that. I needed to do something to make Winter forgive me for everything that happened. But what? Nothing would take those memories away. She would have them until the end of time. Then make a new memory, you dumbass. Christ, how have you survived as a man this long? It baffles the mind. Ah, there's the storm I know and love. Yeah, baby. Now, think hard and do something incredible for Winter. Who knows, maybe Prince Jasper will be able to help. Also, yes, you dumb man. She's pregnant with our pup. I suggest you get a doctor to check her tomorrow. I suppose you're capable of that at least. My pup is going to be glorious and beautiful with Winter as its mother. I can't wait to see her belly grow swollen with our child. Winter is going to be a stunning and wonderful mother. You though, I suppose you won't be the worst father in the world. Gee, thanks Storm. It was a compliment. Didn't feel like one. I could take it back? All right, good night Storm. Night, man. I close my eyes content for the first time in a long time, my arm snaking around Winter as I pull her close to me, reveling in the feel of her in my arms, picturing her body and her swollen belly as she gets more pregnant. Soon, I fall asleep, my mind awhirl with plans and possibilities. Winter POV. God, I feel like absolute crap when I wake up the next morning, stumbling to the bathroom and vomiting while Kai rushes to hold my hair back from my face. I feel so nauseous and it doesn't subside even after I've finished, as I lean against the toilet bowl and curse under my breath. This is the last thing I need. I also know instinctively why I'm throwing up and it terrifies me, the notion of a baby developing in my womb, the reason it's there, how it was conceived, all of it is just too much for me to handle right now. I'm still angry at Kai, even though he was under a spell, part of me wishes he had fought harder against Vanessa. Was our mate bond that weak? Or was her power that strong? I would never fully know for sure. Girl, we are having a pup, a gorgeous little pup. Don't tell me you're not excited. Who cares how it happened? It happened, now let's deal with it. You can be as hurt as you want, but I know you want to be a mother, Winter, one that's going to be a hell of a lot better than the woman you were stuck with. But I'm still hurt, Sabriel, and I'm scared. What if I'm not a good mother? I wouldn't even know how to be one. You become one on instinct. Your mother was evil, you are not, you will be fine child. We got this. We'll be the best damn mother in the world. Or at least the most loving one. So I forgive Kai, just like that? Like he didn't do anything wrong? Sabriel pauses for a moment and then, if it was you, in his shoes, would you not want forgiveness for something completely out of your control? He was under a spell, Winter, you know he loves you. He was willing to become a hybrid to stay with you. I think that says how much he wants to be here with you. I hate it when you're right, Sabriel. That's 'cause I'm always right, baby, and you know it. Now forgive the poor and focus on the fact we're having a pup. Kai gently strokes my back. It feels nice. I take deep breaths and thankfully the urge to vomit has subsided. He has a thoughtful look on his face and I feel dread rise inside of me. I know what that expression means, he knows. Sure enough, he opens his mouth and his next words are, "Honey, when were you planning on telling me you were pregnant?" His hand drops by his side. I bite my lip. I wasn't completely sure I was, I admit, and part of me was hoping that Vanessa's spell hadn't taken effect. It's not the way I would have liked to conceive our child. He winces as the words hit home, looking guiltily at me. I know, and I'm sorry, so sorry for it. Do you hate me? He asks anxiously. I shake my head, remembering Sabriel's wise and somewhat sassy words. I did, but now I don't. You were under a spell, it's not fair to blame you for that. He looks relieved. There's a knock on the bedroom door and he scrambles to open it. I hear him murmuring something to someone and then he comes back, a smile on his face. Sarah just brought us some fresh clothes. When we're ready, we're to go downstairs to the dining room. She gave me directions. Fresh clothes sounds like heaven. I glance at the shower and he instantly starts the water for me. I drag my clothes off and then quickly step inside and moan. The water is heavenly and perfect, cascading down on me and onto the shower-tiled floor. Kai makes a move to leave and I glance at him pointedly. It will be quicker if we both shower, I say calmly and then firmly, but only to shower. He laughs and chucks his clothes off, joining me. We soap each other up and rinse off, grabbing towels. Kai turns the water off as I hop back into the bedroom and eagerly examine the clothes. I wriggle into the crimson-red dress and put on what thankfully is new underwear with tags on it. I have to go barefoot though, not wanting to wear sneakers. Kai does the same, but he's wearing trousers and a shirt and looks devilishly handsome. He runs a hand through his disheveled hair and then reaches out to take my hand. "Shall we?" he says, eyes twinkling. To my surprise it's late morning, not the afternoon as I'd presumed. Probably from having to get up in order to be sick. Kai easily makes the way to the dining room where Prince Jasper, King Axel, Queen Arabelle, and King Stefan are patiently waiting. "Forgive us for being late," Kai says as he pulls out a chair for me. Prince Jasper waves his hand in dismissal. "It was a very late night," he drawls. "I'm surprised to find you are up so early." I give him a small smile of thanks. King Axel smiles at both of us, his eyes twinkling. "Good morning," he says easily. I glance around at the large table. We're all situated at the end though, sitting cozily in a group. "King Axel, I will discuss this treaty of yours after breakfast if that suits." Prince Jasper says, grinning. Mother and father will of course also attend the meeting. He glances at Kai. Would you two like to come as well? He suggests. I am more than happy for you both to bear witness. I think that sounds like a fine idea, but Kai has other plans in mind. He takes a deep breath. Actually, is there a hospital nearby? Kai asks that we could possibly go to and get checked out. Prince Jasper looks concerned. My apologies, I did not realize you were ill. There is a wing in the castle that is used for hospital purposes that you can go to. Would you like us to delay the treaty while you are looked over? I shake my head, Kai doing the same. Thank you, but that's not necessary. King Axel is more than equipped to deal on our behalf, says Kai, and I firmly agree. Well then, I guess we should get some breakfast in our stomachs, chuckles Prince Jasper as his parents smile at us warmly. He rings a small bell that's on the table, a tinkling sound that's quite sharp to our sensitive shifter and vampire hearing. Sarah comes in bearing a large tray of different dishes, that she begins to place on the table, but then suddenly she pauses, her body stiffening. I examine her with curiosity. She's a stunning woman, with vibrant red hair and the greenest eyes I've ever seen. Her eyes have the slightest tinge of red around them. She's tall but still quite petite, with lovely porcelain skin and a maid's uniform on, that only enhances her incredible figure, and somewhat, to my envy, large bosom. Is everything all right, Sarah? Asks Prince Jasper, looking quite worried. I'm impressed that he knows her name and isn't a pompous prince who doesn't care about his workers. Kai gives my shoulder a nudge. At the table, King Axel has also stiffened, his whole body suddenly going really tense, his hands clutching the edges of the table. His claws have come out, I notice, and is causing gouges in the beautiful dining table. He's gazing down at the table, his hair over his face, so it's impossible to determine what's going on with him and why it's happened so suddenly. He lets out a low growl that startles everyone at the table, everyone that is, except for Sarah, whose eyes were widening in disbelief, her lip trembling as she bites it. I wonder why she's shaking so much. King Axel stands up abruptly, looking upwards, his eyes pitch black. There's a possessive look on his face. I marvel to myself, suddenly suspicious and aware of what must be happening. The vampires on the other hand look slightly panicked. Maybe they don't do this when they find their mates? Ahem, King Axel, do you require some medical assistance? Asks Jasper, looking at the king as though he's a bit of a madman. Kai is just grinning widely, enjoying the show. King Stefan and Queen Arabelle look quite alarmed. Mine, growls King Axel suddenly, Sarah's eyes shooting towards him. She looks afraid, as he begins to make his way towards her. His arm shoots out and he grabs hold of her arm, as her eyes begin to glow red. Then she speaks, in a small, quiet voice, but one that's powerful nonetheless and just as full of possession. Mine, mate, she hisses. There's silence at the table. Mate, roars King Axel, and then without further ado, he bends down and kisses her on the mouth, sweetly, gentle, claiming her in front of everyone as his. Prince Jasper and his parents are in shock. Kai and I on the other hand are beaming widely, hands to our mouths. With the whole debacle with Vanessa, he deserves a second, or was it third, chance mate that loved him. I'm sure he never envisioned it would be a vampire, but who cared? She was a beautiful woman, and from what I had seen of her, quite lovely and sweet. She was very polite. Ahem, coughs Prince Jasper, snickering slightly. Would it be too much to ask you both to rejoin us at the table? King Axel reluctantly pulls away and then looks over at us with a guilty expression on his face. Sarah is blushing profusely, her hand still on his arm. Stammers King Axel, still holding tightly onto Sarah's arm. Do apologize for this. I laugh. You should never apologize for finding your mate. I declare I think you both make a lovely couple. Yes, I agree, says Kai. Are you really mates? Asks Prince Jasper. We are, Sarah says softly. I guess this explains why I've never been able to find one until now, because my mate is clearly a shifter. We are happy for you then, King Stefan says smoothly, a wry smile on his face. His wife nods her agreement, also smiling now they've realized what's happened. King Axel's eyes go back to normal. I would like my mate to sit with me, he says firmly, leading her to a chair as Kai and I move down one to allow it to happen. Sarah looks uncomfortable sitting down, but Prince Jasper nods and then rings the bell, another maid appearing as he issues instructions. The tray Sarah had been holding was on the end of the table, where King Axel had placed it before he kissed her, long since forgotten. We all devoured the food when it came. Sarah incredulous and sitting quietly as she too ate, at King Axel's side at his insistence. I was sure it was a novel concept for her, but she would be queen of the werewolves if she accepted King Axel, and I really hoped she did. He was such a loving man. They would be perfect together. Finally everyone was finished and seated back in their chairs. I had eaten lightly, fearing I may be sick if I ate too much, or ate something that made my stomach heave. Now, we will discuss the treaty, says Prince Jasper, getting up. Then he meets Kai's eyes and gestures him forward. I stay where I am as the two speak in hushed whispers, before Kai comes back and tenderly helps me up. I will check in on you both later, Prince Jasper promises. I hope all is well. King Axel murmurs the same, as does Sarah, while King Stefan and Queen Arabelle glide out of the dining room. I gather they are going to the study for the treaty negotiations. Thank you, Kai says easily and begins to tug me away, heading towards what I assume is the hospital wing. Let's go get you checked out, he murmurs to me in my ear, and let's see our baby. Jonathan POV, she's so beautiful. It's the thought that constantly crashes through my mind during the drive back to the pack. Willow, my mate, in the passenger side, trembling all over. She's covered in bruises, all over, with needle marks in her arms, her eyes still welling with tears. My heart hurts to see my mate like this, my possessive side coming out. It's exactly what I felt with Winter, but this time I was embracing the mate bond, wanting to have a relationship with her, but with what she's gone through, is she going to want to have anything to do with me? I glance over at her. Her lip is trembling and she's staring pensively out the window, her body as far away from me as possible as she shrinks herself over towards the door. Besides the word mate and telling me her name Willow, she's not really uttered much more. She did want to go to my pack, however, when I suggested it, not discussing where her pack was when I asked. Willow, I say gently, are you all right? Do you need me to stop? To pull over? I was desperate to hear her voice again, the sweetness of it. She shakes her head, her eyes looking at me anxiously. No, well, at least I got something out of her, I thought to myself drily. I know you must be scared, I say evenly, concentrating on the driving, feeling sleepy but energized with my mate beside me, but if you want to talk, I will listen to you. I want to help you, I offer, we're mates after all. Mates, she repeats slowly, but aren't you going to reject me? She asks incredulous. I'm hardly Luna material after all. You could do so much better, she says sadly. I hate to hear her put herself down so bad. Don't ever talk about yourself like that. You're beautiful, I say honestly, glancing at her stunning raven black hair and those clear blue eyes of hers. I'm average, she says dully. I think you need glasses. I pull over with a screech, the cars behind me doing the same as I mind link everyone to wait. She stares at me, apprehensive, wondering what I'm about to do. I think you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, I tell her firmly, pulling off my seatbelt as she cringes. You have the sweetest, most musical voice, you have the prettiest pink lips, the gorgeous pale skin and hair that I just want to touch and stroke all over. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she listens to my voice. But doesn't it bother you, she utters, and I move my head, wondering what she means. What on earth could possibly bother me? I think she's the most courageous woman for going through what she did. I could only imagine the horrors she must have faced, what she had to endure. The tests she went through. All alone, with no one to get her through, besides the other prisoners. Does what bother me? I ask, narrowing my eyes. She gulps and then looks away, her voice weak now that I'm an Omega. She finally murmurs. My jaw drops open. I hadn't even thought about something like that, nor did I care. If anything, my rejecting Winter had shown me to be more compassionate towards others, and to not care about the hierarchy that was prevalent in packs. I take her hand. She stiffens but doesn't yank it away. Tingles run up my spine. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, I tell her warmly. She looks stunned at the admission, but I mean it. I don't care at all. She could be a normal human and I would still want her. You mean it, she stammers. You don't care that I'm an Omega? I shake my head and smile at her, watching her pink lips curve into a smile of their own. Her blue eyes are blinking back tears now and beginning to sparkle as she realizes that I don't want to reject her. I'm sorry, she apologizes huskily. It's just in my pack Omegas are nothing more than servants that have to obey every single command in the pack. Even ones we don't want to, she says darkly. I shudder at the thought and then realization dawns. Oh God, did she have to? She looks away, embarrassed. I'm afraid I was caught running away from my pack by the hunters, before I had to do something like that, she says, cheeks blushing. My stomach stops churning and my anger fades slightly. Still, I want to know what kind of pack would require that of its Omegas, for to me it was nothing more than akin to rape. What's the name of your pack? I ask calmly and she stiffens, glancing over at me. The Red Blood Pack, she says quietly. You might not have heard of them. They tend to keep to themselves so that elders don't interfere. I was lucky to escape. Most girls get caught before they can cross the boundary. She shudders, and they're never seen again. I was so angry. I hadn't heard of this pack before and I wondered just how far away they were from my own. How far had Willow traveled in order to escape before she got caught? Willow was looking a bit pale and sickly now. I decided not to question her, for it would only bring up more terrible memories for her. Forgive me, I tell her quietly. I didn't mean to upset you. She blinks at me and then visibly relaxes. She's no longer shrinking against the passenger door of the car, I notice with some relief, but rather sitting closer to me in the driver's seat. I start the car again and mind link everyone to rejoin me in driving, pulling out and onto the main road. There's not much further to go and then we'll reach my pack. I intended on getting my mate settled in and then going to search out Simon, my half-brother, and visiting him. He also had enough on his plate, before being rushed into meeting absolutely everyone all at once. I wanted to meet him when he was relaxed where he was, for I suspected, it would take some visits and a lot of convincing for him to want to come and settle in at my pack, if he wanted to at all. For he had far more siblings at Winter's pack and my mother, sadly, wanted nothing to do with him when I told her, which made me incredibly sad. I finally see my pack house up ahead and pull in front of it with a sigh of relief, stopping the car and undoing my seatbelt, stretching out the kinks in my neck. Willow stares up ahead, her face full of awe as she sees the largeness of the house. I'm grateful to see she seems to like it, slowly getting out of the car and looking around with curiosity. It's beautiful, she breathes, her eyes wide as she looks at the house. It's big but homely looking, she adds. I give her a warm smile. Welcome to my pack. This is my home, I say sincerely, taking hold of her hand and leading her to the front door. Behind us I can hear other cars pulling up and my men going to their own homes, to sleep off their tiredness from fighting and driving. I open the door with my keys and then usher her inside, watching as she looks around with fascination and eagerness. Her hands lightly touch some artwork in the entrance and she smiles at it. It's always humbling to see someone react to your home like that. She was impressed and I couldn't help but wonder what the pack house at her pack was like. Was it just as grand? Homely? Or was it cold and forbidding like I was imagining it to be like? I was extremely grateful that my mother was asleep, not wanting her to meet Willow just yet, until I could talk to her. I didn't want her to mistreat Willow nor be cold to her. She would accept Willow or I would have to put my foot down. The only reason I didn't do that with Simon was because of the hurt mother was dealing with in finding her mate had in fact been alive and had another child with that woman. I had given her time to grieve. But Willow was a different matter and I wanted her to feel welcome in my home. Her stomach gives a growl and I laugh as she bites her lip, looking shy. Let's get you some food and then to bed, I say, leading her to the kitchen. I was quick, my hands deft and efficient as I made the best sandwiches I could at that late hour. Peanut butter and jelly. To be fair, she scoffed them down, as did I, with a big glass of milk. Ah, it was so satisfying. I was proud of myself, even as I felt the tiredness beginning to creep in. I gave a yawn as I placed the dishes in the sink. Willow did the same. She was swaying slightly on her feet now and barely able to stand upright. I quickly grabbed hold of her hand and led her upstairs. I quietly pulled her into my bedroom and watched as her cheeks turned bright red. I could have smacked myself in the face. Of course she was going to think the worst with what she was used to. I flushed and glanced at her quickly, letting go of her hand. This is my room, I say sternly, but I didn't bring you in here. Well, for that, I say, gesturing with my hands. She looks a bit worried but nods, still staring at the bed. I sigh. I need to explain myself better. I want to just lie beside you in bed, I tell her sincerely, just to hold you in my arms, nothing more. But if that is too much or you don't want to, I will find you another room to sleep in. Just say the word and I'll respect it. No questions asked, no pressure. She looks like she's wrestling with something in her mind as she gazes around the room. I wait patiently for her to speak. Finally she does. I would like to lie in the bed with you, she says slowly, her musical voice filling the air. I really don't want to be alone to sleep tonight. But I have nightmares, she admits, hanging her head, her hair covering her face, like she's ashamed of it. I reach out and grasp her by the chin, gently lifting it. Then I will be there to comfort you, I promise her, and help you. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Sometimes I have nightmares too. She brightens. I show her the bathroom and she scurries inside, while I go and fetch some clean sheets for the bed. She takes her time and I knock on the door, worried when she's been in the shower for a while. I don't have any other clothes, she squeaks, opening the door slightly, like a crack. I grin. I can lend you some boxers and shirt for now. I grab them and pass them through the door. The shower turns off and she comes back into the bedroom, dressed in my clothes. I hastily excuse myself and jump into a very cold shower, coming back in a towel, to find that my maid is asleep, curled up on her side, facing the wall. I dress in some boxers and get in, careful to avoid waking her up, lying on my side and placing a protective arm over her as tingles run through my body and part of me grows heated. She looks so angelic, lying there, her hair covering the pillow, her body warm beneath my arm, her chest rising and falling. My shirt was way too big for her, more like a nightgown on her, but it was adorable and my boxers were rolled over to fit. She smelled so sweet as I inhaled her scent and she looked like she belonged, in that bed, and with me. The question was, would she accept me as her maid in time, or would all of this, the responsibilities of being a Luna, be too much for her to bear? Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.